And today, well, time is short and we want to focus on discussion. So I have a PowerPoint presentation which is built up probably on two different parts. First is giving you some background on the issue of what a steady state could mean for business in production, where the problem arises. And the second part is the proposals. I only have two proposals for you. And the proposals, some of you probably saw me in London earlier this year. And there I focused on what a company itself could do. This proposal is probably, or the two proposals I have right now, are probably more aiming at policymakers, what they can do in order to help companies redirect their focus from growth away to a more sustainable manner of doing business. We can, of course, then discuss all the other proposals that I didn't make, and probably you have some additional proposals in the discussion section, but I will only focus on these two proposals. So to start off, Peter Victor this morning was referring to, for example, the growth in material extraction, the growth in resource use, and all of this. And I think he used very dramatic words, and the situation is dramatic. I try to just put up a slide from the Living Planet report from the WWF that is referring also to data from the International Ecological Footprint Network, which is a wonderful website, footprintnetwork.org, which you really need to check out. And with this measure, the ecological footprint, and Peter was explaining to you what this actually is doing, you can really try to picture how much planets we use for our production activities. And as you can see, around the early 1980s, we were within the limits of the resources and things that planet Earth provides us. So up to 1984 maybe, or 1983, depending on how you measure it, we were using up to one planet. This is this one. And if you look for the second point in time, roughly about 2010, where we are now, we're using probably 40% more than nature can regenerate in a given time period in a year. That means we need 40% more of the planet Earth. And if we continue this by 2030 or something, or in the 2030s, you cannot really say exactly when, but then we will need two planets. Of course, from probably this point onward, this is just a hypothetical diagram, because we cannot overspend nature in this matter. So at one point, this curve will go down and will collapse. But this is really the issue that is at stake here, and the problems we're all facing, that we're really using much more ecological space that is available. And the question for me, being a management person and being educated in this, is how can businesses react to this? So the first motif for me was not to ask, okay, what can the government can do by introducing new taxes? This is also important, but this is not my main focus. My main focus always was, can businesses out of themselves do something? Do they have to grow? Or where does this impulse to more growth and more profits, where does this come from? Is it possible doing it without growth? So this is my kind of background. I was thinking what can be done about it, and there are two kind of strategies that are available for companies, not only for companies, but probably especially to them. And these kind of two strategies, just to give you another background, is either playing the efficiency card, eco-efficiency with new products, technological innovations like fuel-efficient cars or new kind of engine technologies and all this, and betting your whole money on the possibility to decouple economic growth and its ecological impact. And suddenly you arrive at a paradigm of sustainable growth or green growth. And you probably heard this also in the media in the UK, and that this is sort of a goal for government to achieve sustainable growth or green growth, as if you could really kind of do this and decouple completely what you do in the economy from what is happening in ecology. The underlying paradigm, the basic assumption is that of this triple bottom line. So that there can be sort of a balance between economic, ecological, and social goals. So these, in Germany we say as three spheres model. So and if you somehow can leverage it and balance it, then you can have probably growth without all these ecological pressures and so on. And this is, if you look for sustainability reports from companies, you always see this kind of model, the triple bottom line. You always see these three bubbles and say, okay, and we do this, and so we can have our economic activities without harming the environment or society. The reality, of course, is there is a dominant bubble, and the dominant bubble is, of course, the economic bubble. So if it is bringing down costs or if it's increasing profits, then we will do it, and then it's probably ecological beneficial or social beneficial. So this is really the dominant idea, that you can do something for the economy today and do something for the ecology a bit later, or so after you earn the money. The other strategy is the sufficiency strategy. Sufficiency is aiming also at innovation, but not so much on technological innovations, but on behavioral innovations. So changing what people are actually doing, how they use a product, what kind of products they're buying, or for companies, what kind of products they really are selling, or probably not selling. Probably they start selling a service like the example of car sharing that I used in London earlier this year, and we probably can talk about this as well. So sufficiency means really an absolute reduction of material throughput, also via the means of less products. And Peter Victor was telling that the efficiency focus is only focusing on a reduction on a relative scale. So you get more fuel-efficient cars, but you get a lot of more cars. So, and this will eat up all efficiency gains in the long run. And probably the paradigm for sufficiency is really much more on the good life itself and what this means. And the paradigm there, the assumption is that the economy is somehow embedded in an environment, in a societal environment, and in a natural environment. And when I'm telling this to graduate students, I always say that the economy lives on prerequisites that it cannot produce itself. So it cannot produce a good skilled workforce. It cannot produce democratic institutions or social stability or emotional stability or love or whatever. If the economy tries to produce love, we call this prostitution. And if an economy tries to produce political stability, we call it corruption. So, so the economy can only do what the economy can do, and for the rest it needs other environments to supply it with. So this is a totally different view, because then the hierarchy is pretty much clear. If the environments of the economy are not working anymore, the economy can also not work. So this is really a fundamental difference. Now, coming to the issue of degrowth and the firm itself. This is really a debatable thing. There are some who say, okay, we can have a lowered scale and a degrowth in the economy within existing market systems, because profit and growth are different things. And the others say, no, we cannot have it because growth and profit are so closely interconnected that the one drives the other. So if you have profit, you always want to have a bit more profit, and so the growth spiral takes off. Well, I think that indeed profit and growth need not be connected, because the only thing that you need for a company, well, the only thing in terms of money, is that you can pay off all your bills. And this is what you can term with capital cost. Capital cost is everything that a company needs to pay, be it the worker salary, be it the salary of the managers, be it the investments you need to do. Also pay off, probably you can even include a shareholder's salary in there. So the only thing that a corporation needs to do is ensure that their revenues exceed their capital costs, or at least match the capital costs. If they exactly match, the economists say you have an economic profit of 0, and this is the desired thing. Everything else is nice to have, but it is just that, nice to have. So as soon as this minimum condition is fulfilled, an economic organization can continue its operation as an economic organization. So it doesn't need to become a charity, so it still can work as an organization of the economy. However, there's another kind of well-being that I try to introduce, and this is the ecological well-being, because of course, everything what the company does is connected to ecological impact. So when you say total revenue, so probably sales or something like that, of course this has an impact on the natural environment, probably via the technology you use. If you use a combustion engine, it has a different impact than if you use, for example, a fuel cell or so. If it's less, I don't know, but you get what I mean. And the idea with ecological well-being is that every company has something that you can call an ecological allowance. So this is sort of a footprint for a company. How big the ecological the ecological impact of a company is allowed to become. So if these two kind of conditions are met, that capital costs are lower than total revenue and total ecological impact is lower than the ecological allowance, you have what I would term sort of a right-sized profits. This is what in the first quadrant here. This is this is for me the sustainable organization or the sustainable business. This is synonymous with that. The other quadrants, as you can see, on one hand you are economically well, but you run into ecological excess. This is probably the one thing that we have most. On the other hand, you have an economic loss, and the fourth quadrant is the most least desirable. This is the eco disaster, where you run into troubles on both ends. Today, we don't have any measures for ecological well-being. No measures that we employ can really say how big is enough for a company. We have relative scales. If a company is more environmental friendly the year after or so, something like this. So have we reduced waste or have we reduced emissions, or do our products produce less emissions or whatever? We can probably calculate these things. But we don't have sort of a footprint for companies in the sense that we can say 3 tons per year per, I don't know, unit produced you're allowed to have or something. We don't have an absolute measure, and this is probably the problem that I see for companies, that they don't have a measure, an absolute measure of how big their ecological footprint is allowed to be. And as you can see, I hope that no, it doesn't work. Okay, anyway, the normal movements, the normal strategies always go from this to this here. So this is the favorite movement, because you want to get into this position. Oops, oh my goodness! It's a big iPad. Oh. Anyway, so you just move into this direction, and only probably by accident you move into this direction. And the big task would be to move this dominant direction around and move it into this direction of right-size profits. This is for me the biggest questions that we have to answer. How can we do this? And these are kind of different strategies that would be needed to achieve this. I won't discuss these strategies in detail, but maybe we can have a discussion later on. So what I'm proposing now to heal the world, at least on 2 issues. The first issue is the issue of measurement, as I said. You can only manage what you measure, especially if you're in a corporate environment. What matters is that there is a number on the bottom right, and either it should be as large as possible or it should be as small as possible. And if you have a number, you can do something with it. If you're talking with managers and you say talk with them about behaving sustainable or something, they immediately ask you back, okay, and what is that? So how do I know if this is sustainable? I mean, we're reducing waste, we're doing this and we're doing that, but am I becoming more sustainable? If I have a measure, then I can justify decisions. So the first really important thing for companies is to have a measure, and this would be, of course, also something for policymakers to really either fund research towards creating such a measure, or providing sort of a, I don't know, a point of reference for companies where they can probably go to and see how they perform against this measure. There is something in the UK, how do you call it, carbon, where you can, how is it called? Yeah, I think something like this, and where all companies are rated or something. Yeah, exactly. So companies need something like this because then they can start playing the games they are used to. So we can become bigger or smaller, and this is good. So we can do it. Probably you have probably experienced it for yourself if you own a car. Shame on you. But anyway, if you own a car, they introduced also. How much fuel you are now using per mile or something like this. And this is a new type of measure. And I think it was Audi who done a commercial where two guys are driving around cars and then they're meeting at night and they okay, 5.1 and the other says 4.9. Damn it. And then they drive off again and try to beat each other and have the lowest fuel. Anyway, it's contradicting the thing, but as soon as you have sort of a measure, you start to trying to get it, and so this is really a first thing. I try to we don't have to get into detail this, we can discuss this, how you can do this this calculation, how big is just right, because this is really not trivial, how to do this for a company. For a company, I think the easiest way to do it is going for carbon, because carbon is by natural laws very closely connected to the production process and anything that is done with a product. So probably carbon is the waste of the day or the emission of the day that we can really use for calculating sort of a measure. So trying to have sort of a global cap for per annum carbon dioxide emissions, trying to somehow relate this to world industry production. Maybe you can even calculate it for different industries and build sort of a ratio of carbon dioxide and world income contribution of world industry production. This is important. How much does production contribute to world income, to world GDP? And you can probably divide this, as I said, into different industries or different countries or whatever, and use this ratio, which I call, I think it's kappa, you know, right, to calculate the individual ecological allowance for carbon dioxide for a company if you just multiply it with the total revenue. So this is very just a first thought how you do it. I will present with a colleague of mine, hopefully a small case study at a conference in Italy in October, I guess, where we'll try to present this and how feasible this is. But this is really the first steps into such an absolute measure. So there's the one thing. Try to develop such a measure. This is something for policymakers, also something for academics to provide companies with something that they can really use for measuring how big this is going. And the second thing is, as Adam said, but I was also educating economics and law, it's about the legal form of corporations. And this is really an issue that I think is very important to get out the sting of growth of companies, to think about what if there are any structural issues here that drive companies for growing. And of course, a shareholder corporation has this kind of impulse for growth in it if you don't have very nice shareholders. And so 3 different types of corporation or forms might be an interesting alternative or could be developed into an alternative. And the issues for policymakers would be to make these legal forms attractive for business, that you can really easily set up such a thing or transform your business into one or somehow fuse the issues. And I just take up 3, and I think you're mostly familiar with cooperative organizations and foundations. I don't know how much of you are familiar with low profit limited liability companies, LLC, which is quite a new thing. So I just will skip through some of these forms. A cooperative, it's quite an old form, and it is, I think it goes back to a Scotsman even, as I found out. And the cooperatives are really focused on a common goal or something beneficial for its members. So actually it's like a household turned into an organization in a way. It can also sell stuff to other people who are not within the cooperative, but this is the first idea that economic actors come together, help themselves, and make their own kind of organization and their own business, and so that the ownership of the organization and the workforce, the investors, and even the one who benefit from it are identical. And the interesting thing about cooperative is that in recent years there have been in numerous countries especially also in Germany, a change in cooperative laws to make them more attractive. I think in Germany it was in 2007 or 2008 or so, when the cooperative law, which was 100 years old or so, was changed in a way to make it more attractive and more easy to build a cooperative, even to have a limited cooperative, so with a limited liability and all this. And I think since 2006 you have even the opportunity to have a cooperative on the European level, the SCE. It's a new organizational form that you can choose. If you don't want to have a normal limited on the European level, you can also have a cooperative on the European level. So this is quite interesting that there is some movement into this. But I think it could be done probably even better, or help probably normal, what is normal, like corporations probably to be a member of cooperative organizations, or the other way around, so to make sort of a network of these different organizational types. The foundations, as you know, as a non-profit organization, it's in Germany, and I think also in Britain, that sometimes corporations are owned by foundations. In Germany, this is with the Robert Bosch GmbH, which is a limited foundation, which is also very interesting that the German organizational laws allow this type of mixture. But you have numerous others. Some of you might know the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, big German daily newspaper, and they are also owned by a foundation. And Carl Zeiss, which make optoelectronics, they are also owned by a foundation. And probably something that everyone knows, Mozilla Corporation, the legal rights, the patents of this corporation are transferred to a foundation. So they are interesting examples how ordinary corporations and foundations kind of mix in a way. And it would be, I was just giving this a food for thought, an interesting idea. If you have this profit that is beyond what you probably need to sustain your business, it would be an interesting idea to transfer this to a foundation that then probably do some social ecological projects either in local communities or in developing countries. So this is an interesting idea to probably discuss later on, how this mixture of foundations and organizations can probably benefit the goal of getting the growth impulse out of businesses. And the last newest one is the L3C, the low profit limited liability. It has been around in the US for I think only 2 years or so. In several US states it has been introduced. It's sort of a hybrid organization of a non-profit and a classical profit, and you need to have a charitable goal and everything for it. And as I was looking through, I was suddenly found out that I am partly working for such a thing. In Germany we call this Gemeinnützige GmbH, Public Interested Limited. And as I found out, there are even public interest corporations, or the possibility to set up something like this. And these they are allowed to have profits, but only very low profits. The company that I'm partly working for as a part-time job is an independent research institute that is organized in this form. The interesting thing is that in the German case, they don't pay any corporate taxes. And they're allowed to give a donation to get a tax receipt for it, so they can do this, for example. And it's something similar happening in the UK with the so-called community interest companies. So these are kind of 3 forms of organization that might be really an interesting alternative, or an alternative to be developed into some, for having an organizational form of business without the growth impulse in it. 23 minutes, so I will just stop here. What I didn't mention is, for example, what companies themselves then can do, for example, by establishing closed links with their customers, and probably have sort of a reverse learning process about product and product use, and change the business model away from products to services, or away from production to the entire life cycle. This is something that I didn't mention, but I think we can discuss this issue, if you like, of course, in the discussion. So that's it for me, and now I hand it over to Ed.
Brilliant, thank you, Andre.